So this is a great topic for me, hot pursuits and great escapes, because I was thinking about this. I think that I spent most of my adult life either in hot pursuit of something or escaping from something, often at the same time. And that's what this story is about. In 2007, I moved from New York City to Los Angeles, landing at the airport almost to the minute when the Writers Guild went out on strike. That wasn't the plan. The plan was to escape the crazy living in New York and rent a sweet little hillside bungalow and make some easy showbiz money. But the strike threw a wrench into things. Big payday scriptwriting gigs fell through, and I was forced to look for somewhere cheap. I ended up in a 2-room apartment in Hollywood in the shadow of the 101 freeway. My first night there, a water bug as big as a date went scuttling across the carpet. Flashback to the Lower East Side. My new neighbors were a 40-year-old skateboard punk, an old man who wandered the halls in an open bathrobe, and a haggard-looking Wonder Woman impersonator. Hollywood Boulevard was a couple blocks away, and during the inescapably sunny days, it was crowded with visitors, most of whom appeared to come from Illinois or Japan. They would troll slowly up and down the busy sidewalks, looking for recognizable names in the inlaid brass stars. At night, as gentle floodlights bathed the Art Deco facades and a cool breeze rolled up towards the passes of the Hollywood Hills, obnoxious louts from the valley and the Inland Empire would roam in drunken packs from one velvet rope clip joint to another, looking for drunken packs of the opposite sex. The women were worse than the men. By 1 in the morning, it was not rare to see 2 pretty girls in miniskirts tearing into one another outside a club on Cahuenga over some perceived slight, screaming and scratching, while up the street a dude in square-toed loafers calculated whether to ditch his date, who was barfing her chocolate martinis. This is the environment in which I began to apply the life lessons of my high school driving instructor. I steered into the skid. I was lucky enough to find a few unglamorous drinking spots that didn't register with the roaming packs. Places with endearing names like Tiny's KO, the Frolic Room, and Jumbo's Clown Room. And an astonishing assortment of characters. A menacing dwarf doing fire-breathing tricks with a cigarette lighter, an aging pimp in Huggy Bear duds, an off-duty stripper who looked like Snow White after a night of whoring, middle-aged cowboys. In those strangely relaxing, beer-soaked rooms, I nursed cheap drinks, counted the bills in my wallet, and considered my options. The strike cast a pall over the whole town. Even non-guild work dried up as union writers scrambled for the low-paying animation scripts I usually survived on. Eventually, I was forced to look for a job, my first in years. At the beginning, I took a casual look-and-see approach, casting around the internet for something interesting. But as my bank account dwindled, I adopted more of a scorched earth strategy. I cobbled together a resume that hid the gaps in my employment history behind a razzle-dazzle of font changes and action buttons. I squeezed references out of people I hadn't spoken to in years, some of whom greeted my calls with a vaguely annoyed, "Who is this?" I sent emails in response to almost anything. Copywriter, outreach director, youth development coordinator, tutor, tour guide, assistant to the outreach director, halfway house bed monitor, crew member at Trader Joe's. After 2 or 3 weeks of this, I began to wonder if there was something wrong with my computer. Then I got a nibble from a healthcare workers union looking for a communications specialist. By then I had reworked my resume several times and I hadn't kept track of which inflated version of myself I had sent along. But after an exhausting grilling by a thorough recruiting officer on the phone, I was invited for an interview. At a grim building east of downtown, I was interrogated by a rotating cast of earnest activist types and the tired-looking hacks who supervised them. They wanted to know that I was in it for the long haul, that I was passionate about their mission and excited about being part of the team. The thing about having no money is you'll say anything. And I did, over and over. I was invited back for a follow-up session with an advisory board. A few days after that, a writing test. I was spending so much time there, I felt as if I already worked at the place. And increasingly desperate about money, I convinced myself that I really wanted the job. You know, maybe it'd be nice to be part of a team. I thought lunches with the gang, joking around the office, dental insurance. So I was invited back for a final interview with the Big Cheese, the statewide head of the union. I figured it was mostly a formality at that point, that he just wanted to see that we clicked. So I laid it on thick, throwing in a lot of regular guy banter and cracking a joke, something to establish my leftist cred when he asked me where I saw myself 10 years down the road. I'm like Stalin, I said with a wink. I only make 5-year plans. The next day, the recruiting officer called to say that they were going in another direction. So by now, I was hand-washing clothes in the sink to put off trips to the laundromat and skipping haircuts. I took note when an item in the paper listed places where homeless people could get free meals for future reference. My back to the wall, I developed a feral alertness. I became acutely aware of everything going on around me, and I rated it all in terms of getting money. If I saw a man waving cars into a crowded parking lot, I thought, how do they even know he works there? Because he's wearing a black windbreaker. Maybe it's somebody else's lot and he's going to pocket the money and take off. One night, I went with a friend to a party in the hills. It was in honor of a young writer, the son of a famous cowboy playwright. The house wasn't enormous, but it was perched high with a $10 million view. The cowboy playwright wasn't there, but some of his contemporaries were, all of them carrying an air of hippies with money. I felt like a 19th century anarchist at a debutante ball. I thought, how can I separate these people from some of their mysteriously obtained income? Surely there had to be a way to scrape a little off the table. That's an original Rouchet, my friend said, of a small painting on the wall in the bathroom. Really? Oh yeah? I saw the painting with new eyes. What if I walked out with it, I wondered? They're all so stoned, they probably wouldn't notice. I realized, though, that as the interloper at the party, I'd be the obvious suspect. My friend wandered off, and I stepped into a vacant study. On some shelves above the desk were the usual knickknacks, a pendulum, a crystal statuette of a dancer, silver frame photos of weathered villagers somewhere, and at the far end, behind an antique tobacco tin, a pocket watch, also antique, probably white gold. That was something I could easily slip into my jacket, something that wouldn't be missed for some time. I glanced over my shoulder and gave the room another scan, and that's when somebody grabbed my arm. All right, let's go. What? Let's go, my friend said. If I want to get a parking spot near my house, we have to leave now. Oh, right, okay, yeah, I said, sort of rattled as he pulled me to the door. So, on the ride into town, I thought about the pocket watch. I knew I had no moral qualms about taking it. I realized, in fact, that the only thing that ever deterred me from crime was a fear of getting caught, and the knowledge that I would not do well in prison. Not that most people do well, but I would be especially poor at it. This much I know about myself. But maybe if I could come up with something more removed, financial maneuver perhaps, with a series of firewalls between me and the actual event. That, I admitted, I would do in a heartbeat. That night, I treated myself to cocktails in a restaurant lounge off Melrose and lingered over a story in the paper about the sketchy security of online auction sites. With the blood-red walls and dimly lit sconces and wrought iron railing of the place, I had the feeling of being in a 1970s TV movie where the charming rogue in a wide lapel jacket sips whiskey from a tumbler and prepares to work the amoral landscape of Los Angeles on its own terms. 2 days later, a producer called. He was intrigued by something I'd sent him, an idea for an episode of his long-running show, a cartoon for 4-year-olds featuring an industrious repairman and a set of talking tools. My take on the material was a little off the formula, he told me. We don't want it to look like the tools have something to hide, he said. But he liked the story. Thought it opened up new terrain for the show. He was willing to go forward with it as long as I was comfortable walking a fine line between incidental misunderstanding and outright deception. I told him. Very comfortable. Thank you.